Hi, everybody. Do you need a stretch? Have you been sitting there for a couple hours? Let's get a quick stretch. Come on, I'm going to give you a quick little break. Get,
Mary
pumped up
actually
because we're going to have
ran
some
the New
fun
York
here.
Road Runners Club, so she may take you on a run around the block.
Be careful where this is going.
Exactly. I'd like to have us go to a mile, but we'll save that for another day. It is my privilege to join these extraordinary women to talk about women's sports. In so many ways, I feel like we're early days in the commercial space, but we're booming in every other way, so watch out, and these women are leading the way. So today, I'm going to start with you, Jasmine. It was only this past January when you started the Monarch Collective with Kara Nortman, and I remember the goal was a $100 million fund to invest in women's sports, and I think you closed at $140 million?
Yep. Yeah, we're excited to have gotten the fund closed and to be on the road to investing in this exciting category.
Amazing. So tell us, what are you seeing? What are the most significant opportunities in women's sports that you're focused on right now?
Yeah, so as a fund, we're really focused on what are opportunities to invest in teams, leagues, and sports that we think are the most mature in the ecosystem. Because our whole strategy at Monarch is how can we build a really concentrated portfolio of opportunities and be hands-on partners to help these businesses to grow. And so we're spending a lot of time in the soccer, global football ecosystem, but also spending time on things like basketball, golf, or tennis, and really just trying to find the right opportunities where there are values-aligned ownership groups and management teams, and building for scale.
Is there a global sport you're considering that you didn't have top of mind when you started this in January?
That's a good question. There's nothing that has bubbled up on the list of things I think we'll do in this fund, but thinking forward to Fund 2, spending a lot of days building early relationships and knowledge around things like rugby, cricket, racing, cycling. So I think there's lots of spaces that are where you can drive really incredible returns in women's sports right now.
Talk about a sport, very early days, women's cycling. So that's one to watch globally for sure. I'm going to segue here to Katlyn Gao. You share a Bain early days. Both of you worked there.
Early for me, yeah.
A little bit of Chicago. You both share Billie Jean King as an investor. I can't think of a better place to start. Katlyn, I'm blown away. You've just closed a $35 million round. You're a very accomplished executive in retail and consumer, but a first-time CEO, first-time co-founder, only 3.5 years in. You've raised $60 million from some of the biggest investors in sport. Tell us about this last round. You closed it in what we'd consider a hard time to get deals done. Tell us about it.
We're so thrilled to be inviting such a diverse group, over half women, but also just incredible investors, and including investors that have rejoined us from the A round as well over a year ago. And for us coming into fundraising, we had one objective, which is you can take money, but you want to take money from folks that truly support your overall vision. And our vision is not a small one. Right, we're creating the next major league, and we're creating it on the #1 girl team sport for high school girls, which is volleyball. And not a lot of people knew about volleyball, despite how popular it was. Although, as of a month ago, 92,000 people showed up in Nebraska for a regular season game, shattering all sorts of records. So, going through that process, what we were able to do is really articulate a story of how big the sport is, first of all, but also our unique approach. Our approach is very much starting with the fan base, with the consumer base first. So we started actually with the youth club volleyball business. So 3.5 years of building that and creating one of the biggest, if not the biggest, volleyball community already across 21 states and 43 clubs, was really sort of that strong foundation that we were able to reflect our momentum with the Olympians who won gold in Tokyo joining us for our inaugural season next year. So I think that's what really resonated, and we're incredibly fortunate to have such a wonderful group.
You're a classic startup because you, on the downside, you thought it was going to be a downside, you started right before the pandemic. And on the upside, the women won gold in Tokyo. and really helps show just how incredible these volleyball athletes are. What's your advice to a founder when it comes to raising money? In one, how early? How do you preserve equity yourselves? And I was there with you during Series A, deciding whether to raise money with a fundraiser or to do it all on your own.
I absolutely think you should get all the help that you can get. I think with the caveat, as long as you are finding help that really truly see your vision, because it's really easy to be persuaded to say, well, that's too much or this is too risky. It's important for you to hold true to your vision, because when you're consistent and you're also able to show the momentum and the proof points and everything that you've accomplished, it allows you to attract a consistency of investment, consistency of investors who will ride along with you because you've been extremely clear on what it is that you're trying to accomplish and all the milestones that you know you need to get there.
I love that, because I think, Jessica, Commissioner Berman, when I think about you, I think about how clear you are about vision and pillars of the NWSL and what matters. So you have this amazing experience, 3 different established leagues with the National Hockey League, the National Lacrosse League, now the NWSL. We think of as a startup in early days, 10 years old, however. So when you look out and think of the new Women's Hockey League, and you think of Katlyn about to launch the professional side of women's volleyball, what's your advice?
Well, first, it's great to be here, particularly with all of you, and so excited that you're now in our ecosystem leading the charge here for Gotham FC, who have a really big game on Sunday. For anyone who lives in New York, you should go.
GothamFC.com, 5 p.m. at Red Bull Arena.
So first, I have to just reflect on this inflection point that it's hard to imagine. I couldn't have imagined that 18 months into this role, I'd be in a position to give advice to anyone, frankly. I think everyone knows the history of this league. We've really transformed, and I'm grateful to say that it's in the past tense, transformed the league into offering a value proposition to investors, consumers, and most importantly, our players that everybody is so proud to build and scale. And the scaling is happening as fast as we can allow it to happen. In some ways, it's hard to keep up with it, which is a different challenge. But I guess to answer your question, I think my advice, having seen an established league scale, which I would say is the NHL, I was on the outside as outside counsel from 2002 to 2006, and then was in-house at the league from 2006 to 2019. I would describe those as incredibly high growth years, but the league was obviously very established with 20 plus teams, substantial revenue, obviously some challenges in getting their economic model right with the players and player compensation, but all in all, at a very different place in their growth than, say, we are. I was at the NLL, which was an emerging or challenger property that was really fighting for airtime for the general sports fan, but had a very avid fan base. And now sitting at the NWSL, where we actually transcend cultural relevance across the country and globe, and have as a default foundation that if any of you close your eyes and imagine greatness and soccer in America, you will think of women. So what an incredible opportunity. And I think that's true for volleyball as well. And we all have a lot of shoulders that we stand on to be thankful for that, for Olympians, World Cup teams who have built the foundation that we are now building a business around, because that default creates such an incredible position of strength. The thing that I have learned in the last 18 months being in this seat is that you can't cut corners. And it's really hard to prioritize the kind of professionalism and operational rigor that's required to build a league that stands by its values and has integrity, particularly when there are so many carrots and shiny objects that are drawing your attention away from the fundamentals. But without those fundamentals and without a commitment to doing things the right way, making decisions that you're proud of in the future, because everything we do will follow us and will create the standard that everyone is watching and following. And so my advice to them is that you build for the future. You get your owners aligned around being long-term greedy, which is something I've talked a lot about, and recognize that it's better to take a little bit longer and do it right than to get there quicker and have it be fragile.
I love that. Patience is a virtue. It's a hard one. So, Jasmine, to that point, you've raised money, so you have investors of Monarch Collective that you answer to. You've just invested in the new NWSL team in Boston. Very excited about our New York-Boston rivalry we're going to have. And you know, they answer to you. Where does patience, how much patience are you going to have with the NWSL team as they grow, and how are you going to tell that story if it is a story of patience to your investors?
Yeah, well, I would say that, I don't know that Jennifer and team report to us. Like, we very much think about it as, like, we're all locking arms and embarking on building this team from the ground up, renovating a stadium from the ground up. There's a lot of work to do, so patience definitely is top of mind, and we're happy every day that we have until 2026 to do it, because there's a lot of work to do. And so, I think when we're thinking about communicating the opportunity to investors, it's really, they joined in our fund knowing that we have a 10-plus year fund life, and we're really thinking about this with a very long-term viewpoint. I think a lot of them have said, I think you're actually going to want to be investors and hold longer than even sort of the term of the fund. Like, let's, I was with an LP earlier who said, we can talk continuation vehicles next time we talk. But I think there's just a real opportunity for value creation and really like doing the hard work to build these teams in the right way, really build depth of relationship with the community, and really be partners in scaling. So yeah, I think patience is a really critical part of it, but also thinking about what are the wins and the timelines that you need to hit to really be ready to go live, and to really sort of set the stage in the right way with an expansion team, because it's a very unique moment that you can't get back ever again.
And you're starting at a high level, because the idea of mature businesses, you are coming in at a time when the growth is accelerating. You're not very, very early, which is a whole different equation. What kind of return are you looking for when you look at a 10-year fund?
Yeah, I mean, we really see the women's sports ecosystem sort of broadly being an opportunity where you can really drive venture-like returns in a way that I think is probably a little more challenging when you're underwriting investing on the men's sports side of things, just given where they are in sort of difference in maturity. But where, coming into a league like the NWSL, where you have lots of great ownership groups and operators, where there's really, really strong protected downside risk. So I think that kind of blended dynamic is one of the things that we think really resonated with investors going through our capital raise. And so, I think, we have modest return expectations that we've communicated to our LPs that I think would be consistent with best-in-class sports opportunities. But when Kara and I are just talking one-on-one, I think we have aspirations that are a lot bigger, and I think we think it's really possible in the NWSL and in women's sports more broadly.
Love it. Katlyn, I've seen you in action applying patience. The women in Tokyo won gold. They are so excited to play here in the United States. These college students, college athletes are graduating from great schools across the nation. They're dying to play professional here. And you really stayed very focused on, we're starting with the youth business, and we're going to choose a really big moment to launch the pro side of the business. So tell us, has that been hard? Is it in your nature to be that focused and stick to
She's
the path?
asking that because she's seen me being very impatient in real life. Absolutely. When we set out to create Love, because we wanted to create something that was sustainable and a legacy business, it was really important that we are being very disciplined and making sometimes hard choices, because we all know that, sometimes we get distracted by the shiny stuff. And pro, and launching it any earlier than we would have done, it would have actually been, honestly, disconnected to our original intention, which is we want to build this community up. So you have to actually have critical mass at the community level, at the local market level, to really connect the dots between the fans, the families, the athletes, the alums, the coaches. We have 2,000 plus coaches that are yearning for something for their girls to go to after they graduate from college. We have Olympians that have said to us, yes, bring us home from the other 48 leagues that we have to play at outside of the US, even when we come home winning a gold from the Olympics. But it would be an empty promise if we just created something and if no fans showed up and this is not a sustainable business, we would have promised them a career and it would have been falling short. So there was an obligation from the very beginning, both to the athletes, to the clubs that have joined us, to create this legacy with us, as well as the investors who are being patient with us to say, yes, we like the way that you're building the foundation first. There's not a legacy, there's no house that gets built without a strong foundation, and that to us is absolutely worth it. And I think the validation comes in, for sure in the fundraise that we just did that was oversubscribed, where we heard over and over again, we're really happy that you've really taken the time to really build this right layer by layer.
Yeah, unlike many businesses, you weren't losing money in these last few years, not nearly to the degree one would expect. You've got a revenue-producing business already.
Yeah, and I think the other piece here, absolutely, and it's an incredible foundation to have. What I think is even potentially more important for our long-term success is the fact that we are able to aggregate a fan base and a consumer base that is super sticky. I mean, they're spending 10 to 20 hours, 7 months a year, practicing, going to these tournaments where tens and thousands of families fly into, usually in the middle of America, right, in big convention centers where all you hear is whistles because there are literally 600 matches happening at the same time with girls between the age of 10 and 18 and their families. So this is already kind of been burgeoning as a sport that is obviously incredibly popular, but what hasn't happened is really that commercialization piece that we're bringing to the table, but doing it in a really smart way, which is starting with the fan base, with the consumer base first.
And I would say with collaboration, I saw John Patrickhoff here, and I know there's a big effort to partner with Athletes Unlimited, and that I think is a smart way to go as well.
Absolutely, and that's really, for us, we want this pie to get bigger and bigger, right? This is not about focusing on small piece. This is saying you've got a popular sport that has all the makings of a major league sport and one that, very uniquely doesn't actually have a big brother comparison effect because women volleyball is really kind of the predominant version of the game. So to us is really about how do we bring the sport to more people through our club community, as well as now, really kind of creating something at the pro level with complementary, partners as well, so that we could really kind of continue to grow its momentum. It's been 50 years in the making. There's no way you get 92,000 people showing up for a regular season game without this having been kind of beneath the surface and growing over time.
Exactly. Talk about collaboration. Here locally, we'll be shouting out for the New York Liberty on Sunday as they hit their final game, or one of their games in the finals of the championships. Commissioner Berman, when you hear all that and think about volleyball as an amazing college sport, do you feel a responsibility for the NWSL and soccer when you think about the Wave, San Diego Wave with 30,000 and the OL Reign just hitting 34,000 record number of fans in attendance, and you think about Angel City, where you're going to go this weekend, as Angel City and the Portland Thorn are one of two teams who can, one of two games where the winner will win the NWSL Shield, but proving that not only can these women's sports thrive in college, proving that there's a path that the pro leagues are going to be commercially sustainable. Do you feel responsible beyond soccer or just focused on the NWSL right now?
Well, I should be probably answering the question to the extent any of our investors are in here by saying that I'm laser focused on the NWSL. However, for those who know me in this industry, I think we all have a responsibility to each other to ensure that the others in the ecosystem are successful and that we're sharing best practices. And we all spend, I think, a ton of time asking each other questions and making sure we understand how to positively disrupt the industry and the ecosystem, because what the industry and ecosystem would have default offered to women's sports wasn't equitable. We all know that. And it used metrics and data that was solely based on past performance, which created a self-fulfilling cycle that didn't actually have metrics because women's sports couldn't be watched anywhere and they weren't playing in places that anyone would want to attend a game. So no surprise, the business was flailing. And what we've really proven, I think finally, I hope it's not a question anymore, and what we set out to prove, frankly, in the 2023 season was really this notion that the growth and the sustainable growth of our league is no longer episodic. And if you look at the 2022 season and all of the incredible flashes of success, which is what it felt like, it was really focused a lot around these one-off examples, and they were positioned as such. Like, is this real? Is this the moment? Is this a movement? You know, those kinds of headlines, and really still with a focus on everything, frankly, that was happening off the pitch as opposed to the game itself. And of course, Angel City and San Diego made it really easy for people to focus on those flashes because they were our expansion teams and they were net new to the league, and they crushed it. And they crushed it so much that it raised questions about whether the rest of the league could keep up. And really, it was our challenge this year to level up the entire league. And really proud to say that Angel City and San Diego have continued their incredible success. And this year, we have 6, actually 7, and hopefully this weekend some more will come. 7 of our teams, other than Angel City and San Diego, have broken their individual team record on paid attendance. And so this is not episodic. This is not isolated success. This is not flashes of possible greatness. This is sustained, and it is happening across the league. And it's happening in TV as well. And this past weekend with Megan Rapinoe's final regular season home game, we broke the record for regular season viewership with 683,000 people watching in primetime on Friday night. And so when you see that kind of sustained success, and that's happening, frankly, with us still operating in many ways through an old model, we just know that when we actually reset the table, which is happening and is underway, both with facilities and infrastructure, as well as with media and sponsorship, that this whole world is going to experience growth unlike what anyone can imagine.
Amazing. Jasmine, what do you see as the most important drivers of valuations in women's sports over this next decade?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. So I think the first is that there's this sort of virtuous cycle tied into media rights and the way you're really getting the content out there. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things to really drive growth because, as Jessica's mentioning, it's really hard to follow sports if they're not out there somewhere that they're easily accessible, that people can watch. But once they get out there, that's when you get sort of the natural in-person network effects of, grabbing a friend and bringing along to go to a game or watch a game at home with you that really starts to grow the fan base in a way that creates this flywheel for growth. And so, seeing great media rights deals getting done, I think will be really important to women's sports. And then that really being able to be a big driver of growing the fan base. I think that flywheel is going to be really important. And I think if you kind of look across the spectrum of women's sports properties right now, there's a number of rights cycles that are coming up kind of all at once. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolution really drives viewership and growth. And then I think the other thing is just, it's going to be really important, and we think about this a lot at Monarch, that when people are investing in women's sports, that you're able to prove that you can drive best-in-class investment returns doing that. And, I know we talk about this a lot at Boston. It's like there's lots of things that we want to invest in, but we all kind of have this true north metric of like, if we can prove that investing in this team drives great returns, that's the thing that allows the next person to go out and raise capital in this space. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be thinking about how do you build great businesses, how do you innovate for this fan base, how do you share best practices back and forth to really, show that asset value appreciation and show it through real exits. Those are going to be the things that I think continues to support valuation growth over time.
And when you look at a business like your investment in the NWSL, and you look beyond the numbers, what are you looking for? Which CEOs, which founding groups capture your attention and are the ones that you want to make a bet on?
Yeah, we really start with values first. So making sure that we're partnering with people that we're really proud to be in business with, that we think are excited and spending time in the women's sports space for reasons that are really authentic passion to them. And so that's definitely sort of point one. Point two, we're really big believers that building a really diverse cap table and management team is really, really critical to actually building great businesses. And so that for us is another metric that we're tracking. We think it's, the right thing to do to be building the sports ecosystem with diverse thinkers at the table, but we actually think it's also incredibly important to drive enterprise value, that you have diversity of thought across, demographics like race and gender, but also of industry expertise. And how are you bringing not only people from sports, but people from real estate and people from technology and people from media? And so we really think about what is this holistic group that's coming together around this opportunity, around values, diversity of thought, and then just people who can really crush it and execute, right? There's a lot of hard work to be done, and so just backing people that can get things done is hugely important too.
Amazing. Katlyn, same thing. Now you've got, you're scaling a team, you're looking for a CFO, amazing opportunity to join this growing organization.
Thanks, Mary.
You had to, you needed those get stuff done kind of people on your team. How about at the ownership level? What's for you? You talked earlier about vision aligned investors. What else adds value to you? Because you really, when you're picking and choosing which ones you'll bring in.
Yeah, that's such a good question, because from the very beginning when we were putting together our working team, as you know, it's been very intentional for us we call it the secret sauce, the blending. And the blending is volleyball, within volleyball, outside of volleyball, within sports and outside of sports, because love is creating the premier brand in volleyball, and to do so in the entire ecosystem from youth to pro, but also all these other value pools that you can tap into, whether it's media, content, merchandise, all these other pieces. You want to make sure that your working team reflects expertise in all of those areas. And so it's pretty similar to how we think about our investors as well. When you look at our investor pool, in the B round, we have Left Lane, who just joined us, in addition to, folks like David Blitzer and athletes and folks that already own their own, teams in major leagues. All of those insights, in addition to their network, to different brands and partnerships, to infrastructure, to real estate, all of those pieces matter, as well as what we talked about earlier, which is really riding along with us, knowing that we're being very clear about what our true north is, what our vision is for where love needs to go. And it's not going to be this quick flip. It's not going to happen overnight, so much so that we've had the patience of building it from ground up for the last 4 years, heading into the Pro League. So by the time we launched a Pro League, we'll have been building our fan base for 5 years. And if that resonates, and plus all of the diverse kind of backgrounds and insights and network and talent connections that we can make through that investor base, that's where we're looking for. We're continuing to look for that special blend.
And where's technology fit in? Are you looking for somebody who especially has that?
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is such an incredible both enabler as well as what we think, in medium to long term could really be the catalyst for this to reach a lot more folks. At the club level, it is an incredible platform for us to be able to help make the lives of our club directors much easier, to make sure that the athlete experience, more like their parents' experience who are paying dues to the clubs, that much better and easier to engage with. We also see it as, for pro in particular, that connecting of the dots of engagement, whether it's media or merch. Technology is such an incredible, my background is in e-commerce and prior to this, so there's really such an incredible potential for us to fully leverage technology, both to do all the functional stuff, as well as probably more importantly, how do we grow the sport by reaching more people through the engagement that you can have in digital that is so much more scaled.
Super important. I'm sorry that we're wrapping up, so I have one question for all of you. You have $10 million of your own. Wave the magic wand. You cannot invest in your own sport. And you're going to invest in women's sports, of course. I can't imagine you'd be thinking about anything else. Where are you going to place your bets?
Is everyone waiting for me to answer?
Well, I would think Jasmine does this every day,
Okay,
but
Jasmine,
she's
you
putting the
go first.
pressure on you.
I don't really ever think about
the
this.
whole pipeline. I'd say we're spending a lot of time thinking about basketball right now, beyond sort of the world of global football, where we spend a lot of time. I think obviously you can't miss what's happening on the viewership number side of things, but I think there's just really a lot of opportunities, I think, for teams in the W and beyond to really prove like what can happen, like if you capitalize the teams in the right way and grow. And I think like in the W, you see so many great new owners coming in and investing. You see a really incredible draft class coming up. So there's just a lot that's really exciting in that vertical. So one we're spending a lot of time thinking about.
Love it.
When I think about the proliferation and the success that is happening in women's sports, one thing that really stands out for me is that 90% of all consumer spend comes from female buyers. So the area of opportunity to create lifestyle brands and consumption around the sport, having these amazing, amazing athletes who are really ambassadors of the brand on and off the court, so not just performance, but also lifestyle, that's where I would put my money.
I would put my money in youth sports, which is probably ubiquitous across all sports.
Thanks, Jessica.
Knowing that it's the obvious connectivity to the multiplier of the family, but as importantly, particularly for girls, it seems like such an important societal issue to solve, which is how to keep girls playing sports. And it would seem to me that to the extent there were companies backing technology or platforms around education for coaches, around usability of platforms, around culture as it relates to girls participating in sports, that would be a catalyst to drive, frankly, everything that we're doing so that girls could actually continue to see themselves in the game, and knowing that that's obviously something that's good for business and good for society.
So all those wannabe founders out there, find these three, and they'll give you some great ideas of opportunity. Thank you all. A privilege to talk with all of you, and thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Mary.